The Wayne County Commission Committee on Ways and Means meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Scott has requested an excuse. Commissioner Baker McCormick. Here. Commissioner Marecki. Here. Commissioner Clementi.
Present.
Commissioner Anderson has also requested an excuse, as well as Vice Chair Baydoun, and now we have Chair Kinlock.
Present.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda.
Item B, Chair's remarks.
I have none. Next item.
See approval of the minutes from the January 27, 2026 meeting.
A motion is in order to approve the previous meeting minutes from January 27th.
Have a motion?
Yes, I'll make motion.
Support?
It's been moved by Commissioner Clemente, supported by Commissioner Marecki. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? This item stands approved. Next item, Madam Clerk.
We're going to move to item E, number 10, under new business on the addenda. And it's requesting commission approval of the appointment of Aaron Wagner to the position of Director of the Procurement Division for the Department of Management and Budget.
Thank you. And good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, staff. Good to be here today. Again, my name is John Wallace, CFO Wayne County, and I'll introduce.
Aaron Wagner, currently Chief Procurement Officer of Oakland County, hopefully Procurement Director of Wayne County moving forward.
Okay.
Okay. So today I'm here to request appointment of our next procurement director. Aaron Wagner comes with us with over 20 years of procurement experience in public sector and private sector experience. Most recently, Aaron's coming from, or still at, Oakland as a chief procurement officer. Aaron is involved in electronic procurement, as well as the overall procurement strategy, metrics, workflows, compliance of Oakland County. As you know, Aaron was here at Wayne County for up to 8 years, working in various positions as procurement director, deputy CFO, as well as chief administration officer. We think Aaron brings back a lot of peer best practices, working both in Wayne County and Oakland County. And we think he can come in and be effective immediately, also help us with moving Oracle forward with a procurement standpoint. So I respectfully request that you approve Aaron Wagner as our next procurement director of Wayne County. Aaron, we got him slated for a start date of February 23rd at a salary of $176,000. Thank you.
It's been moved by Commissioner Baker McCormick, supported by Commissioner Clemente. Any questions on the discussion? Commissioner Marecki.
I don't have a question, but this is great. I did not see the addenda, so now I'm really surprised. So, this is great. Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Wilson.
Thank you, Chair Kinlock. Just a quick inquiry. The position that you're coming to now is the one you currently hold in Oakland County?
That's correct. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer, so it's different terminology, but
Okay.
it's an appointed position, and I'm the head of their procurement department.
Oh, great. So it seems like you have a wealth of experience, obviously looking at your background and your salary. It looks like you're getting a raise, right? Is that a raise or?
Once you take in taxes and other things, it's a small bump, but I want to come home.
Same
Wayne
thing
County.
I told Max White. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well done. Thank you, sir. It's glad to have you aboard. Thank you.
At this time,
Make it a little light, sorry. Okay.
Question.
But thank you. Good to have you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? This item stands approved. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
We are moving to the agenda, item number 6. Discussion regarding the Michigan's property tax uncapping law.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Scott Vandenbergel, Director of Assessment and Equalization. So I would like to know, how would you like me to begin? Do you want me to just sort of go through things free form, or did you want to talk about the news story regarding the couple and the $20,000 uncapping or the executive order? What is your pleasure for how?
Basically, like you said, what initiated this discussion was the request for you to give us overview and an understanding as relates to that issue that was the uncapping issue, and then then lead into the city of Detroit. The questions that we've been discussing regarding the whole tax assessment issue and what brought about the executive order from the mayor of the city of Detroit.
Okay. First off, there was a recent news story from a couple weeks ago. This item was tabled from a couple weeks ago to today for the benefit of those who didn't know, that a couple had moved from Tampa, Florida to the city of Detroit, and they bought a duplex in the Midtown area. I keep on wanting to say Cass Corridor, but it's branded differently now. Um, and it's a property that was owned for some time, and it was owned prior to a significant time of appreciation for values for properties in Detroit. So in simple terms, the assessed value was here, and the tax base or taxable value was here, and the property was purchased in, I mean, it was already, from what I understand, in decent condition, but it was also rehabbed with new siding and windows and things like that. So after the uncapping process, first I should mention the taxes were something in the order of $3,500 formerly relative to the seller. And then relative to the buyer, the taxes went to $20,000. So it went up, many-fold over what was being paid before. And that was because the taxable value rose to meet the assessed value. In that process, the couple definitely expressed their displeasure and their sticker shock, if you will, at the increase in their property tax bill value change. It appears that everything, however, was in good order with the process, with the assessed value being, having a reasonable relationship to the property, and the taxable value process administratively uncapping and raising to the assessed value. One of the downsides for a healthy city and county government and rapidly appreciating property values is, fortunately or unfortunately, in this case, to the dismay of the buyer, the uncapping process. So during a time of rapid appreciation, that tends to result in a corresponding increase in the taxes relative to the buyer versus the seller. So if Mr. Whitfield and I own identical houses right next to each other, and he has been there for 20 years, and I just bought a house, his taxes might be 5,000 and my taxes might be 20,000 in this example. Identical houses, 5 feet apart, but entirely different taxation consequences, notwithstanding that the properties are identical. So there's equity in assessments, but there is not equity in taxation. That may be a little bit of an unusual, or it doesn't even really sound right or fair, but nevertheless, that's what was voted into the Michigan Constitution with Proposal A, as you'll know that by its common name, from about 30 or so years ago. I remember
Richard Headley. Yeah.
And right, all those kind of constraints on the tax base, and then on the relative to the entire tax base in the total amount of taxes that are collected, that relates to Headley. And then for individual property basis, there is a cap for the taxable value at 5% generally, or the rate of inflation, whichever is lower. The past couple of years, inflation has been higher, so the taxable value cap has been actually engaged at 5%. I think 3 years ago and 2 years ago, last year, I think, or for this year, I think it was 2.7%. But at any rate, very substantially different values. And that uncapping process definitely does sting buyers. Although they're moving into an area where there are healthy economics and the circumstances behind the sale, that is one definite big downside for that. In the memo, I've identified a few things. The process itself can't be changed and shouldn't be changed because that's the law. But as far as ensuring the taxpayers avail themselves of all possible programs and tax breaks and so forth, I put those things in the memo.
It's very helpful and be great for all of us to have that information because like you said, is a constitutional amendment that impacts all of us. And so now let's lead into the whole issue that has been talked about the actual assessment and the concerns that generated the reason for the mayor of the city of Detroit to issue that executive order. There's a lot of communities and residents across Wayne County who are concerned about these assessments and whether they're being done fairly and by a certain standard.
Yes. So the conversation we just had pertained mainly to taxable value and uncapping. So there's two numbers on the assessment roll that the assessor maintains: the assessed value, which has a relationship to the market, and the taxable value, which has a relationship to the tax bill. So putting aside the taxable value for the moment, now focusing back on assessments, which is where the origination from all these things rests. For the city of Detroit, it's been a hot topic in the legal arena, in the court of public opinion, and administratively within City Hall, with the assessing department and the office of the mayor. I know that it's been a key point in Mayor Sheffield's campaign, and it's been on her mind for a long time. I've been in meetings with her over the past couple or several years regarding property assessments, meetings with state tax commission representatives, city of Detroit assessing representatives, and it's been on the mayor's mind. The first thing that I should mention is an underpinning for everything is the city is nominally or minimally compliant with having equalized values that represent 50% of market value. So what we do is recommend to you, but what the county commission does is equalize property. In other words, the county commission, via our recommendation, says to local assessors, okay, assessor one, you raise your assessments 10%, you raise your assessments, assessor two, by 5%, and so on and so forth. And that equalizes, that brings everybody up to an equal county equalized 50% of market value. So that's the main requirement where the equalization is involved. And that's the minimum standard for things. Notwithstanding that on the average, everything is at 50%. And I've heard people say, if you put 4 people in a room with Elon Musk, let's say he's worth $100 million. So you have 5 people in a room, they all have the 4 people have a net worth of $1, and Elon Musk is $100 million. Well, the average person in the room is a multi-billionaire. But in reality, 4 of those people are broke. So yeah, so if we want to talk about the average, everybody's a billionaire. That's wonderful, but you have 4 people that are essentially penniless. That's a little bit of maybe the way to frame the case for the assessments in Detroit. There are a lot of assessments that are proportionately overassessed. There are a lot of assessments that are proportionally underassessed. And then that manifests itself in the form of what we would call a sale ratio. So if a property sells for $100,000, theoretically, the assessment would be $50,000 and it's at 50%. Not necessarily always the case where you have over and under assessment. And that is what the concern is of the mayor and the Property Tax Coalition, the social activist group that has been examining the public records and having discussions with the mayor's office and a lot of technical advice. And that group is being led by a couple of University of Chicago law professors. So very high level way of thinking. Very in-depth analysis of the statistics behind the assessment process, but without delving into all the minutia of it all, it basically pertains to, okay, we'll concede that the assessments are at 50%, but they're all over the place in reality. That's the underlying premise that in very academic language that the coalition has put forth to the city. what the mayor has, I thought it was very wise way of doing it, is the mayor has said, okay, we'll acknowledge that everything is in good order and is legally compliant with county equalization. They've done what we've asked them to do. They've done what the state asked them to do. But this is the big leagues. This is the city of Detroit. This is Wayne County. We're at the far end of the continuum for everything that we do as far as the standards for things that should be in place. And we don't want to just be minimally compliant. We don't want to just meet the floor standard. We want to not only be at a standard of average, but we want to be, past that and at a gold standard. So the IAAO, which is the International Association of Assessing Officers, that's sort of the, to relate things to other fields. So the American Medical Association, that to doctors, the IAAO is the gold standard professional association for assessors, and that is international. It's all over the world. Very cutting edge techniques for property valuation, statistics, and training and development programs, things like that. The mayor has said we want to reach for the gold standard, and we want the city assessing department to employ the standards that this organization has promulgated and expressed that those standards should be met by directive of the mayor. So it's not just an aspiration or a voluntary form of compliance, but it's an actual mandate from the mayor's office to say, okay, we're done with the average. Now we want gold standard work.
Okay.
It's in simple, sort of to make a long story short, which I don't really know if I'm doing. That's what the mayor has asked the city to do.
You've given a lot of clarity, clarification, and as we're moving into the tax seasons and all those, questions that come about around that time, I want to thank you for making yourself readily available, immediately responding to questions that our office receives as it relates to the whole assessment process. And thank you for generating this. And I'm looking forward to the next big discussion we're going to have as it relates to these abatements and the various what we're giving up, the discussions about what we're giving up and how we need to take a different look and approach and when we receive those requests. Yep. So I want to thank you. And hold it. Any questions, Commissioner Marecki? Thank you.
And maybe I missed this, but so what does the gold standard mean then for all the assessments in Detroit? What is that mean?
There are statistical measurements of, one of the key statistics is PRD, price related differential. And that essentially means it's a statistical measurement of whether assessments are proportionately progressive or regressive. So in other words, the case in Detroit has been that higher value properties are proportionately underassessed and lower value properties are proportionately overassessed. So that's a bad situation. We want everybody to be equally and fairly at 50%. It's a measurement tool to be able to quantify what that notion is and see whether, okay, we're at 50%, we know that, but we want to see if the highs and lows are smoothed out into appropriate equity, and then the dispersion of a taxing burden is equal amongst the classes of property and then within those classes of property.
Okay, thank you. And then I just have a question. I haven't bought a new house in 30 years. Do people know what's going to happen when they buy that house as far as their tax? Can't people find that out? No?
Not really. Unless they have a very competent, well-informed agent or technical, whether it's a tax accountant or a title person or someone advising them. Commissioner Baydoun, as an example, is one of those very competent, very technically astute real estate professionals. And that person would, in an ideal world, apprise the buyer of, hey, this is the seller, this is Phil's tax bill. But never mind that, now we're going to have Scott's tax bill and it's going to be a lot more. And so if people can make the numbers sort of swing on the seller's tax bill, that's great. But really the mortgage banker or the other people that consulting with the buyer really have a moral and professional obligation, I would say, to apprise the buyer on this is what your tax bill will be, Mr. and Ms. Buyer. for the property. There isn't really a legal standard, or there's no teeth in any of it to be able to compel that to happen. I wish there were. It would probably be, great legislation from a public policy standpoint to be able to have that analysis given to the buyer and make sure that they're not getting themselves into something that they can't handle. And then 3-4 years down the road, we're seeing them across the street at the county treasurer's office for foreclosed taxes because they can't afford the house they just thought that they could afford.
Well, let me just say this, that, as far as I understand in the closing documents, because oftentimes as part of the mortgage, they have escrow requirements. And so those assumed tax dollars, the tax liability is listed as part of that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So they list, they're doing the tax prorations. Typically, the
Right.
seller pays the taxes in advance. And then the tax bill is carved up between the number of days in the buyer and the seller.
Right.
But that's based upon, that's
The current.
and
Before the cap,
backward
yeah.
looking. But the problem is, 3-4 months down the road, after someone has been in earnest making house payments, thinking they can afford their house, the tax bill goes out behind the scenes. It goes to the mortgage company. Typically, maybe the people get a copy, maybe they don't, maybe they look at it, maybe they don't. But it could very well be entirely different. And the first sign of trouble with the process, not trouble in the sense of bad or inappropriate, but a technical effect of the uncapping is the escrow account is raised way up as a component of the house payment.
So you're absolutely correct on that. And so somebody in Lansing should absolutely start having those conversations. That should be a requirement. Okay, Commissioner Clemente, and then Commissioner Peterson Mayberry, and then Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have to say that I have spoken to assessor in my community, and he did do a mini town hall trying to explain about the uncapping. I think it's great. I don't know how well it was attended. I think people don't really realize until this type of thing happens. But I didn't get a chance to read about the executive order, but how long will Detroit be going through this gold standard process? And then could other cities in our county also be looking into this, or is it too much of a undergoing for smaller cities?
It's not, in my opinion, too high of a standard, or it's not something that requires inordinate resources or time or staffing to be able to be compliant. It's really the adoption of, it would involve professional development on the part of the assessing staff relative to each of the communities. But these are things that really, practically speaking, in the most prominent county in the state that the assessors in this area should be doing. I mean, there may not be resources or awareness or a level of sophistication up somewhere in the UP, but as I mentioned a moment ago, this is the biggest of the big leagues, and assessors in this area typically are master assessors because of the size and complexity of the local units. So either they are engaging in the IAAO standards for the gold standard practices, or they are already doing a very good job characteristically. We don't really have a recommendation for you all for county equalization factors for essentially when an assessor messes up, they get a county equalization factors, the substance of what that is. That really typically isn't the case. But as far as other people engaging in best practices, we measure things ourselves. So we know within equalization, and my colleague, Ms. Haygood, the assistant director, still here in the back row, I'll just call her out and just embarrass her a little bit. But anyway, we run statistical analyses on the local assessments. So we know who's, out of spec, if you will. There's a range of appropriateness where the assessments would fall. And that gets back to that notion of whether the progressive or regressive or comparatively higher or lower assessed. So those statistics are run, and we give that to the local assessors and say, essentially, hey guys, this is where you're at. This is where we're seeing your assessments. And, we know that the range is 0.98 to 1.03. You're at 1.01 for this performance statistic, and everything is good. If somebody is has a very high statistic that shows that things are out of spec and there's room for improvement. And we really don't have, again, the legal teeth to compel anyone to do anything really. But nevertheless, that's instructive to the local assessor that there may be a need for a reappraisal, which costs time and money for a local municipality. And there's an opportunity for assessors to be apprised of where they're at, how they're doing in their statistical report card. And then the state also has involvement and does have the teeth to make certain things happen.
Thank you. Okay, we will now go to Commissioner Peterson Mayberry, then Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I
Okay.
think my colleague lifted up one of my questions was what's the time frame, and then what are residents doing in the meantime? So I know this has been a conversation that has been going on for quite a while and it's become more robust lately. I do know the city assessor's office have been doing town halls and information, collaborating with city council. I've done one with them as well. But I do think that we can't overeducate with this. It's just so much information. If you're not in this space, you may not understand it. So getting to that gold standard and practices and what that looks like. But from the residents, what happens in the meantime? Kind of this mean and in between time of getting everybody to this gold standard and all these different things. What happens to the resident? Because I think that's the voice that we hear the loudest, obviously, that's impacted. And it'd be good to just have something really tangible to provide to them.
I think in the memo pertaining to the $20,000 taxable couple, some of the things that have been enumerated in that memo about whether if the person is of limited means, consider a review for a poverty exemption application. If the person is of average means and simply has a disagreement with the value, then there's a March Board of Review at the locality, which is an independent agency for assessment review, potential changes. Over and above is an oversight for the local assessor, not a part of it. There's an assessor's review at the city of Detroit where, I think my house is, the city thinks my house is 1,000 square feet. I think it's 900. And, here's my evidence for that. That can be identified and correct the public records. So I'd say the first things that people would want to do if they feel aggrieved by the level of their assessment is to get into contact with the assessor's office, find out what the physical characteristics on record are for their house. They could do that. Of course, all these things are free and relatively easy to accomplish. And verify that the city is appropriately characterizing the house and its improvements. And then if the person, him or herself, has hardship paying the tax bill, there's poverty exemption. There's a special carve out in the law, as I've noted, for disabled veterans, duty disabled, and that can be, a person could have a physical disability, loss of a limb, those kinds of tangible things, or any other form of disability, whether it goes into mental health or otherwise. But at any rate, there is relief available to U.S. vets, which is great.
Thank you. Let me, Commissioner Baker McCormick, Commissioner Marecki, did you have? Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this has been going on for a very long time. I'm a real estate broker, and I remember when I really first got into real estate, that was one of the parts of the educational focus, that I would try to make sure that my clients would understand. And I'm really going back to Commissioner Kinlock saying that it's something really that the state should be focused on, because if a realtor isn't mandated to tell you that it's going to be uncapped and your taxes can go up by $10,000, $20,000. That's the first problem. And
Definitely.
just as we have to provide lead-based disclosures and other disclosures, this could solve that problem by having a mandate that it is openly and discussed, and that they actually have to sign something that they were, that they disclosed this.
That
Um,
would be terrific. I mean, that's exactly what's needed.
it is, and we've had this same conversation over and over and over again. So it's not new, and I'm not understanding why we haven't just changed the law to say, hey, this is a mandate. You can't even buy it without knowing that this gonna escalate to this level or possibly escalate. So education is the key, and a mandate. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I think that placing some level of responsibility into the real estate sales community definitely is the way to go. I mean, this is so technical. There's all these acronyms and statistics, and it all kind of just flows together and is just this big, unintelligible, cauldron of all these different factors that's boiling that affects people. But at the front end of the transaction, not so much down the road when they're getting the tax bill and they're wondering how they're going to pull the money together, or they don't have the money and they're going across the street to the delinquency. And the front end, when to allow people to go into things with both eyes wide open, as you're suggesting, would be great. And it's not a hard analysis to do. We've got the assessment, we've got the millage rate, and we've got the tax bill. So it's just a little algebra problem that's obviously well within the grasp of the citizens, and then of course the sales professional that is representing that person. It can easily be done. There are ethical real estate professionals, and there are some that just want to make the sale.
That's right.
And also too for people in the mortgage industry. They know what's going on. They look at this stuff all day. So, I mean, some people
Needs to be mandated.
Right. It's got to be mandated. Is the effect of it all. Otherwise, I don't want to say it won't happen, but it will only happen amongst the likes of you, ma'am, and Commissioner Baydoun and any other persons who hold themselves to that standard.
All of us. I mean, we have
all of you
constituents
too, sure.
that are affected. So, Mr. Chair, we can do that. Definitely.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I'll ask staff, I'll work with staff to draft a resolution to call on legislature to do exactly that. And so thank you. And so Commissioner Wilson, yep, Commissioner. Yep.
Thank you, Chair Kinlock. Invariably, this is a very, very big issue. Everyone who aspires to own a home, it's incredible that they will be shocked a few months later to say, "Hey, you got $20,000 that you owe on taxes because the assessment wasn't correct." So, I can appreciate the executive order. So, having said that, I guess my question is personally, or should I say, probably collectively for the audience that is chiming in, is the assessments that were made previously, are they the more subjective, and this executive order now makes them objective? So if you have a ceiling and if you have a floor and a ceiling, you got to make an assessment based on the property value between those ranges, or I mean, because why was this not engaged before? Is what I'm saying, because now it's the new mayor comes in, she says, "Hey, here's the edict, here's my executive order." So it seems like something like this should have probably been established a while ago, because I mean, I bought a house 25 years ago, and it probably assesses a little bit different now than it did then. But I guess I thought I knew the range because I had a broker or an agent who was pretty trustworthy. So are we saying pretty much that sometimes there are agents that go outside of those boundaries? And if so, are there any repercussions for these individuals who take advantage potential home buyers who don't have any knowledge of this type of scenario.
So thank you for all those points. The first question is the level of subjectivity or objectivity. By definition, an appraisal is subjective. It's an opinion of value. And certainly, and that's for any form of appraisal, whether it's single property appraisal, you go and get a mortgage and a person comes out to your house and they look around, take pictures. Single property appraisal, that it's a subjective opinion based upon some quantitative objective information, comparable sales and so forth. So that's in one arena. And then in the public sector, it's mass appraisal. It's at City Hall or it's in the Guardian Building, where it's looking at essentially the things that have sold and then projecting a value, projecting or subjectively opining a value on things that have not sold. So it's always within human judgment. I mean, there are many, mechanical and technological means to assist in that, but ultimately it comes down to human subjectivity in professional view. As far as the real estate community and what's and by extension, the mortgage community and the title community and so forth, the whole arena in which things operate. Some go out of their way to educate or overeducate, which is, like we were just saying, is not really even a thing. There's no such thing as overeducation, as was noted. But minimally, nominally, I think in most cases that community does what it needs to do, but either that community itself, in some instances, is not at the level of sophistication, or there are potential self-interest in mind on, killing a sale or killing a commission on a mortgage from a mortgage broker standpoint. So a number of things like that. And then the last point, or I think you made it in the middle, but anyway, the point about why isn't the city already engaged in gold standard practices? And of course, and that would be something that would be obviously ideal. And as Mr. Evans has noted, and I think this is a great analogy for his three terms, the survive, stabilize, and thrive. Well, the survive portion of it was, during the bankruptcy, the city was bleeding staff. There was a hiring freeze. A lot of the senior tenured employees left the city with institutional knowledge, and then it was stabilized, and that was in the last several years, during the state mandated reappraisal. And if you'll recall, some of the commission members and staff who have been around for some time, the county was engaged by the state via a directive by the State Tax Commission to become the assessor of the city of Detroit, and get the record straight. So there was that level of the stabilize, if you will, to draw the analogy back to Mr. Evans. And then the last step, the thrive, would be, okay, we got ourselves out of the hole. We're basically, in most cases, good with our records. We have things appropriately in the public record. And then now we're going to take things up to the next level to where they should be. And that's where the mayor's thought is on these adoption of these gold standard rules and regulations that are not really rules and regulations. They're aspirations and they're voluntary. And that's sort of where the trick has come in, is voluntary. It's voluntary. Well, I mean, the mayor has told the assessor to do it. So that's, she has made it, involuntary, but in principle, these are voluntary best practice professional standards, and no one really has to do anything in a time during the bankruptcy, let's say, of limited resources. No one was able to get gold standard assessments because, trying to keep the lights on and get the assessments and taxables out in the first place.
Okay, so if there's any additional question I'm going to ask, because this is, like you said, a very deep concern, throughout Wayne County. And so I'm sure you'll make yourself available for any additional questions, but please read the material because it also speaks to the organization that the International Association of Assessing Officers. And so they'll answer some questions as well. Any additional questions? Any additional questions? Okay, well, thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Good job,
Thank you.
Scott.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Yep.
Madam Clerk, we would like to go to the, we'll go to the follow-up as relates to the, W-2 forms.
Moving to item 8, discussion regarding the status on the corrected 2024 W-2 forms.
Through the chair, just a quick update on the W-2 correctives for 2024. As you know, we hired a firm. We brought this commission back in the spring, ultimately got approved. They started work in August. They're in the process of wrapping up that work, gave us a distribution of affected, corrected W-2s. We're looking at that now with the plan of getting those distributed by the end of the month.
Okay, so did your team, you weren't here last week, but we requested that your team meet with our council for clarification. Had you all met, Madam Council? So there were some other questions, and Mr. Tolbert was here in your stead. So I definitely still, want to make sure that those questions were answered.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Chair,
you.
we'll make sure they get answered.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, yes.
One of those questions in particular was around the fees. So I just want to make sure that remains a conversation that takes place when you all meet. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item. Yes.
We are now moving to item B, unfinished business. Communication from John Wallace, Chief Financial Officer, Department of Management and Budget, reporting the fourth quarter financial report for fiscal year 2024-2025.
One action item with the one motion at the end of the agenda. Okay, thank you.
James Tatum, MNB.
Yes, okay, would you just give us a overview?
Yeah, so it is a requirement under charter for the executive branch through the Department of Management Budget to provide quarterly financial reports to commission. And the report that you have or was submitted in December is the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025, the fiscal year that ended September 30th of 2025.
Okay, as we saw in the budget process, which made this even more important and we've been working with management and budget to bring these in line and as far as getting these caught up to date. The question is, was there any variances, anything you see within any of the departments, including and especially the elected departments that would bring rise to them ending their fiscal year in a deficit, as we saw that it happened with the Register of Deeds office?
I would kind of question to some extent the word deficit in a department just because
Whatever the accounting word terminology that's utilized, they came here and they basically was in a deficit.
I would say none that are outside the norm. So for example, Sheriff's Office has historically had overages in their overtime, and that continues this year. However, they have made improvements. It has flattened over time.
So what about these chargebacks? The chargebacks and the impacts that how are departments, and particularly the elected departments, made aware of the impact that chargebacks will have on the year-end expenses?
I would have to defer to the budget director in terms of how they're informed at year end.
Okay, just want to make sure that they're informed, including the county commission as it relates to projections, as it relates to chargebacks.
Go ahead, Phil, I'm sorry.
Philip Whitfield, Budget Director, Management and Budget. The chargebacks, they're incorporated throughout the year. And so I think what happened in the past is there wasn't a communication with the department so that they were aware. So that ends now, as far as that communication is concerned, so that they'll know what to expect at year end. And to James's point, we've been almost weekly reviewing and analyzing the budget versus actuals to see where those things line up. And with some of the fourth quarter chargeback adjustments, those things will be communicated directly to the department.
What about the monthly reports that you're trying to get from the departments? Have they been caught up yet? Reconciliation, I think that process that we when we had that meeting.
I won't say we receive monthly reports from the department, but I will say, especially with this fourth quarter report, there was communication, pretty consistent communication where departments were shown to have some type of deficit or major overage. We were communicating with the departments and getting information with them and asking them, did they intend to put forth a budget adjustment or some other type of corrective action?
Okay, our staff just brought some clarification as relates to some issues last year. Okay, so thank you. Any additional questions as it relates to this report? Any additional questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Madam Clerk.
We are returning to new business, item E1, communication from Eric RCB, Wayne County Treasurer, forwarding the first quarter investment report for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Yes, bring us some more good news.
Is your mic on?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. As of December 31st, 2025, we had 1.75 billion in our general fund and 41.2 million in the reserve fund under management for a total of $1.793 billion. Our investment earnings as of December 31st, 17.9 million in the general fund and 438,000 in the reserve fund for a total of 18.3 million for the first quarter. We're on track for a 70 million plus interest earnings for the fiscal year. We are not expecting rates to drop until June, which will be a slight decrease. And our average return on our portfolio is 4.08% compared to market rate for new investments between 3.5 and 3.8%. So we're doing pretty well.
Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, appreciate it. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 2, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2025-35-191, decertifying revenue in the general fund.
Any questions? Any questions on this item? Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 3, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2025-35075, certifying revenue in the Third Circuit Court General Fund Operations Fund.
Who's here to speak to this? Okay, thank you. Yep.
Your mic is.
Good afternoon, Commissioners,
Good afternoon.
Vice Chair Baydun, and Chairman Kenlock. My name is Felix Owaku, CFO, Third Circuit Judicial Court.
And I am Kevin Martin. I am Deputy Chief Financial Officer for the Third Judicial Circuit.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we're here because the VBRD grant was set to expire on 12/31/2024. So the court only budgeted 3 months of FY25 budget.
Mhm.
So the grant was eventually extended through 12/31/2025. So we are requesting funding for the remaining 9 months of FY25.
Okay, thank you. And I would like to ask, are there any questions as relates to this item? Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to clarify what happened, or if the situation with the attorneys was resolved, their pay. I don't know if was, as we talk about budgets, I was just wondering, do you?
Well, that's the attorney situation is not involved in this grant. I don't.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the grant. I just thought about it as we talk about funding, whether we resolve that situation. Yes, it doesn't have anything.
Right. So
I was just wondering about that. Popped in my head.
So if you send me an email, I'll ask for an update on that.
Okay.
I'll ask for an update, but
Thank
they
you.
wouldn't be the ones that handle it. But thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any additional questions? Any additional questions? Okay. Thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome, Mr. Chair.
Yep. Next item. Madam
Item
Clerk.
4, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2025-35-206, decertifying revenue in the law enforcement fund.
Okay. Who's here to speak to this? Is someone joining us by Zoom?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Benita Terry.
Okay. Can you speak up? We can not. Wait 1 second. We can't. We can barely hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
No, it's something we have to do on our end. One second. Oh, you need to speak closer into your mic.
Okay,
Okay.
how about
Yeah.
now?
Yeah,
Are
you sound better. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Again, Benita Terry, Chief of Administration for the Sheriff's Office. So for this budget adjustment, we are just decertifying the funds from the JAG grant and placing them in 2026 fiscal year. We did not receive them in fiscal year 2025.
Okay. Okay, let me ask committee members, do you have any questions on this item? Any questions? Okay, thank you, Vanita.
Thank you.
Next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 5, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2026-35008, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Any questions on this item? Any questions on this item? Next item, Madam Clerk.
May I please have a motion for item D, unfinished business, and item E, 1 through 5?
A motion is in order to recommend. Motion is in order to receive and file the appropriate items 1 and 2, as well as 1 and 2, and to approve items the other respective items.
3, 4, and 5.
Yep, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Clemente and supported by Commissioner Marecki. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item stands approved. Next item.
We're moving to item 7, discussion regarding the status update on the requested comprehensive report on health trust plan administration concerns.
Okay, who's here to speak to this? Who's here to speak to this? Okay, 2, 4, 10. Okay, this item will be John, can anyone speak to the as relates to the status of this? Okay, you can't. Okay, you can. Okay, thank you. Okay.
James Tatum, M&B.
Yes.
So this is in response to a request for a report on the employee or health trust that was received, I believe, December 11th,
Yes.
2025. There were 2 components to that report. One had to do with the FICA treatment of contributions that were made to these individual accounts, and then the second was with respect to investment gains in those accounts. So those are being worked on actively, and I can speak specifically to the second half and the investment gains, and there were direct conversations with MERS so that we'll be able to provide comprehensive answers to those questions.
Okay, so when would we have the final report or?
I would expect within the next week or so. It'll certainly be before this committee by the due date, which I believe is March 1st.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll be waiting for it. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, Madam Clerk.
Item number 9, discussion regarding the status of the remaining fiscal year 2025 budget adjustments.
Okay.
Philip Whitfield, Management and Budget. We are planning to have all final budget adjustments submitted before the next Ways and Means meeting. We had a couple that were still kind of pending as we were going through the review for this meeting. All of those will be on the agenda that we still have. They're actually in review process now, so they're coming out of review and they'll be in TCM probably before the week's out.
Okay, any questions? Any questions? Thank you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
We're moving to item F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I know of none. Next item.
Item G, public comments.
At this time, I'd like for you to unmute those individuals who are joining us by Zoom and maybe joining us by telephone. I would like to ask everyone if you are interested in addressing this committee to please raise your hand or indicate that in the chat.
Chair, there are no hands on Zoom, no one on the telephone, and no emails were received.
I'd like to ask, is there anyone present who would like to address the committee? Anyone present? Anyone present? Public comment is closed. Next item, Madam Clerk.
H, adjournment.
Motion is in order. Been moved by Marecki, supported by Clemente. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.